So good afternoon and welcome to our DiveIN session today. Through our DiveIN training and development programme, we want to give businesses the tools and skills they need, whatever stage they are at, to establish or enhance their diversity and inclusion offering to staff. This 12-month programme has been developed in partnership with Equate Scotland, with SMEs accounting for around 95% of Scotland's construction industry. This programme has been specifically tailored to provide them with advice and guidance to implement real change. While COVID-19 has shifted priorities towards industry recovery, the DiveIN programme will support and encourage businesses to promote diversity and inclusion, ensuring that it remains an important topic of 2021 against the backdrop of Brexit and the challenges of lockdowns. So today we are joined by Steve Radley, Policy Director of CITB. Steve is responsible for CITB's work on policy and its relation with the national government. In his strategy role, he ensures that CITB is targeting the right outcomes, has the right strategy for achieving them, and is regularly reviewing the impact of what it does. He is also responsible for ensuring that our research gives us the evidence to support our policy and strategy work, as well as providing thought leadership on key issues and insight and information for employers and other organisations we work with. Steve joined CITB from his role as Director of Policy and External Affairs at the Manufacturers Organisation. Previously, he was Chief Economist at the Henley Centre and Policy Advisor, Education and Training at the Confederation of British Industry.
It's really hard at the moment to disentangle it from a lot of the other pressures on business. And I think the reality for a lot of construction employers at the moment is the focus is really on survival and now really gearing up for recovery. Having said that, I think we are starting to see some Brexit impacts. I think the main impact at the moment probably is related to getting hold of materials, them being scarce, harder to get hold of, and being more expensive rather than on skills directly. But if companies are facing those pressures and are feeling life's a bit more complicated and less confident, it probably does mean that they're going to be less likely to be recruiting people and investing in training. So I think the impact down the road is actually adding to some of the skills pressures companies will face. And certainly I think if we look to the future, we're expecting to see the need for significantly more people in construction, both in Britain as a whole and in Scotland. So I think finding it hard to get hold of skilled people from abroad will become more of a factor in the coming years. Well, I think you have seen the number of employers that are using workers that are born abroad go up quite a lot over the last 10 years or so, from I think just under 1 in 10 in 2012 to nearly a quarter in 2020. So there has been quite a change. I think the level is probably a little bit lower in Scotland. I think you tend to see 1 in 10 of employees in construction in Scotland are foreign born, compared to say about 1 in 8 in Great Britain as a whole. I think more recently what we're starting to see, I think because people saw this coming, is the dependence on foreign labour has reduced a little bit. But I think for the minority of firms where workers from abroad are very important, it's still a vital issue. And I think, you know, for certain trades and certain firms, it's a big issue. But perhaps over the last 18 months or so, it's become less critical than it was before. I think there's a variety of reasons. I think one is that for some roles, particularly, I think some of them are really hard to recruit for. So I think some of the really physically demanding roles like general labourers and ground workers, it can be very, very hard to get people to join and stay from abroad. So having the ability to bring in people from abroad is really important. I think the other issue is, as we all know, construction tends to go from being not very busy to being extremely busy very quickly. So that flexibility to be able to bring people in quickly and for them to be able to fill that gap is really important. A lot of migrant workers, I think nearly half of them tend to be self-employed. So more than in the workforce as a whole, and that tends to add a greater element of flexibility as well. Yes, I mean, I think that companies have started to see these concerns, and I think in general what they are concerned about is that the new points-based system is going to be more restrictive in terms of who they can bring in, and there tends to be more bureaucracy involved, and also there's not a route to bring in self-employed people. So those, I think, are the concerns there. I think in terms of the most important area where CITB can provide support is on evidence. And certainly, I think if you look at the last few years, we have worked with industry to provide really good advice, good evidence to organisations like the Migration Advisory Committee that are advising government. And we've been successful in terms of adding some key occupations such as bricklayers and carpenters to the skilled visa route. So I think that is the most crucial way that we can really support industry at the moment, is making sure that the government is making decisions based on good evidence. For most businesses, the reality is that they have a fairly limited understanding of the new system. It's relatively new, and obviously employers have been dealing with a lot of other things recently. So I think if you look at Scotland, for example, only 8% of employers feel they've got a good understanding of the points-based system. So I think one of the things that's really critical is making sure that there's good information and that people are accessing it and understand what they need to do and what's possible to do. I think beyond that, really the concerns employers have is that the new system feels more complicated, there are more costs for them, and it's going to be harder to bring in self-employed people. I think that the good news is that what we are seeing is that more employers are thinking about how they're going to respond to this. So I think, around about 2 in 5 employers are talking about really investing in upskilling their workforce. Around a quarter are looking at taking on more people as directly employed. Around a fifth of them are looking at taking on more apprentices. So I think companies are really starting to realise that we're going to need to grow more of our own people, and they are starting to take action to do that. I think it is, yeah, and I think there's a range of different roles that people are particularly concerned about, and I think there's some of the ones that are really in demand or really hard to recruit for. So general labourers, ground workers, bricklayers, carpenters, scaffolders, all those sort of roles that I think are really critical to the industry, and the ones that we're going to need to realise the growth that we're looking at in the next few years. There definitely are more pressures being experienced. And I think if we look ahead to the next few years, in Scotland, we're looking at the need to fill around about 23,000 jobs over the next 5 years. And we expect the construction industry in Scotland to grow by 4% a year over the next 5 years. So there's definitely going to be the need for more skilled people in the industry. And the fact that it's going to be harder to bring people in from abroad will add to the pressures and make it even more important that we actually have the actions and the support to grow more of our own people. I think it's absolutely vital, and I think we need to look at a variety of ways to bring the skilled people into the industry. We can't just rely on apprenticeships, although those are incredibly important. I think we need to look at whether there's more potential to bring in people that have left the industry and help them to rejoin. I think there's a role in terms of people that maybe have got some of the skills, making sure that we've got upskilling programs. But one of the things we need to look at really hard is whether we can get more out of the further education system. I think at the moment, only 4 in 10 people that take construction courses end up either with an apprenticeship or a job in construction. So we need to strengthen links there. The encouraging thing is, I think if you look at across Britain, in all 3 countries, England, Scotland and Wales, action is being taken to really improve the links between further education and employers, and improve the flows of people either going into jobs or apprenticeships. In England, we have something that's a recent pilot that started, which is a traineeship and that takes people from further education and gives them a period of work experience and training that then means they're ready to start a job or an apprenticeship. And I think we need to do more and more of those sort of things.
That's great. Thanks, Steve, and thanks for answering all those questions. I was just wondering, before we finish up, if you had anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I think apart from that, the key thing is making sure that all employers in the industry take advantage of all the information that's out there. And I think there's a variety of different organisations that are providing that. That can be from the Home Office, Construction Leadership Council, all the sort of key trade bodies. And I think within Scotland, Talent Development Scotland, I think is a really important route in terms of getting all the information that you need.
That's great, thanks, Steve, and I'm sure our listeners will find that very helpful. So thank you for your time today.
Can I just realised I got the name of that organisation wrong. It's Supporting Talent Scotland.
No worries. Do you want me to say that?
Yeah.
No worries. So thank you for your time today, Steve. And it was just, that's us finished all our questions. And I was just wondering if you have any kind of final remarks to make.
I think the final thing I would to say is that it's really important for employers to take advantage of all the good information that's out there. So I think if employers are looking to bring in people from abroad, there's good information from the Home Office, from the Construction Leadership Council's website, and also Supporting Talent Scotland. So really take advantage of all those opportunities to get the key information that you need.
That's great. That's really useful for all our listeners. Thanks, Steve, and thank you for your time today.
Been a pleasure.